All right, the fourth GOP debate happened last week in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, on the campus of a school that didn't deserve to get into the college football playoff. That's right. You heard it here first. I'm a Florida State guy. So
Amen.
thank
Amen
you.
to that, Mike.
Okay. So, and now we pivot because after they're going to get into the playoff and probably win the freaking thing, they held this debate. And in the words of Mike Norville, the FSU coach, I don't know if it mattered. Because do the games matter? Did this debate matter? If you missed the four candidates that were on stage, Nikki Haley, obviously former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, Vivek Ramaswamy, and then Florida governor, my governor here in the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis, dueled it out on News Nation. Megyn Kelly, Elizabeth Vargas were moderating, and there was some back and forths. If you missed it, take a listen.
Who doesn't have the guts to show up and stand here? He's the one who, as you just put it, is way ahead in the polls. And yet I've got these three guys who are all seemingly to compete with, Voldemort, he who shall not be named. They don't want to talk about it. The fact is that when you go and you say the truth about somebody who is a dictator, a bully, who has taken shots at everybody, whether they've given him great service or not over time, who dares to disagree with him, then I understand why these three are timid to say anything about it. Maybe it's because they have future aspirations. Maybe those future aspirations are now, or maybe they're 4 years from now. But the fact of the matter is the truth needs to be told.
And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on this stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job? That the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11. That the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform. That the 2020 election was indeed stolen by big tech. That the 2016 election, the one that Trump won for sure, was also one that was stolen from him by the national security establishment that actually put up the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that they knew was false.
Every debate, you go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to
I'll
say
tell you
what
exactly what I said, Chris.
I'm not done yet.
Well, this
now
is
look.
This is nonsense. This man is spewing. This man is spewing nonsense.
Let me tell you something. This is the fourth debate. The fourth debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a little while.
I'm going to respond to that. I want to say your version of
We're going to let you respond to that. We're going to let you respond.
That was a lot. A bunch
Here's
there.
your new governor there. Chris Christie's back.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, my old governor when I was living in New Jersey. So there's so much. There's so much there. There's tons of articles everywhere. If you just type in fourth debate, like the first 11 articles that pop up will tell you who won, who lost. We're going to play a clip in a second from Lawrence Jones over at the network you work at Fox News, doing something with a voter who was swayed one way coming into the debate, left another way for another candidate. But high level for you, what'd you make of this fourth debate? And I made this analogy on television about that it feels very preseason. It feels very, we're all waiting to get to the regular season. And I don't know if this game matters. These are people that I'm not relying on, AKA GOP primary voters, according to polls, are not relying on. They like the big guy. They like, and they would say that that's Joe Biden, but the big guy being former President Trump. So like, what do you make of what we just heard and watched there?
Well, first of all, I love that you did debate rap on CNN. That was great. It was like having you out there on cable, man. I bringing it to the big screen. I love it. I mean, look, DeSantis had his best debate, but that's a low bar, right? He's a weird, awkward politician. All the memes today, when he's not talking, he looked weird. he's just a weird, awkward dude. And look, Nikki Haley's clearly the front runner of those four. Ron DeSantis and Vivek were just, going after her. And I think for the most part, she did a pretty good job. She hit back where she could. She stayed above it, right? That one of the times when they offered her the chance to respond to Vivek, and she said, he's not even worth my time. And when she said, they're just jealous, I'm taking their donors. Look, I think DeSantis probably landed some punches. Whether that translates to all of the donors who have been fleeing him coming back, I don't know, right? Chris Christie was kind of his old self. I liked seeing him back like that. But at the end of the day, Trump is still ahead by double digits. And Mike, for the life of me, I know that people love Donald Trump, but he's not showing up for debates. He is indicted. He has dozens of criminal felony charges against him. He was back in court again last week. He says insane things. Maybe primary voters will still love him, but Nikki Haley is the only one on that stage who's talking like a general election candidate, because you and I know that this election will come down to like a couple thousand voters in 5 states, probably, right. 4 or 5 states. And Donald Trump has a ceiling on those voters, independents, suburban women, and Nikki Haley's talking like a general election candidate. But I don't get it. I don't get it, man.
Look, I mean, I have nothing to add to that. You just said what I was going to say, but it's true though, in terms of the way she's been talking, and she's mentioned in our interviews, post these debates and in the spin room, she has said, we're going to bring in a new coalition of independents, of moderates, of Latinos, AKA the person hosting this show. And so she has mentioned that a bunch, and she is speaking like a general election candidate. Ron DeSantis is not speaking like that. He's speaking like what Chris Christie said, somebody that's very timid of going after Trump, minus the little back and forth they had in this 4th debate about his age. I wanted to get to 2 things there that kind of you just said, because we heard in the montage Vivek Ramaswamy talking a little bit about his going back and forth with Nikki Haley. Actually, no. We're going to play the one with Nikki Haley. The first thing that he was talking about was they're not even half truths. They're not even real truths. Yeah, insane things. So I just want to dispel some of these things real quick here, because he said about 2020 election was stolen by big tech. And there's this whole Twitter files thing, Elon Musk thing that's kind of happened. All these stories were being covered by some other networks. And I have talked about this ad nauseum because this is my wheelhouse. I've worked in product and technology for 15 years. I've crafted terms of use, privacy policy, conditions with legal folks, so that when you hit that little button that says you hit that little button that says accept on your app, but you didn't read the thing, we're counting on you to not read that. So that way we know if we want to kick you off the platform, we can kick you off the platform. Because it's content moderation. It's a private company. You don't like it, start your own thing. And again, we're covered by the law. That's why we have lawyers review these things. So he said a bunch of things there. But what do you make of him so far? He's kind of like this. He's kind of like Guam, I like to call him. He's kind of like independent right now. He's like floating on his own. We're waiting for a true consolidation of these candidates. But Vivek has no voters that, like if Nikki Haley dropped out, maybe they go to Ron DeSantis. If Chris Christie's voters drop out, how many they are, they go to Nikki Haley. Like, who are the Vivek voters out there? So let's talk a little bit about the guy who was the loudest voice and some of the stuff that he said there. What do you make of some of the things that he said?
I mean, I don't want to compare him to Guam. People like Guam. Nobody likes Vivek. He was a jerk. He was a bully. He was mean, especially to Nikki Haley. I do think he has a woman problem. He is awful the way he went after her. Those conspiracy theories, January 6th was an inside job, 9/11, like he is lunatic. And you're right that he and Chris Christie don't have a ton of votes, but one of the problems is between DeSantis, if 3 of those 4 dropped out and you could cobble together a coalition, you could maybe get close to Trump in a place like New Hampshire or South Carolina. Right. And so, I mean, Chris Christie has 5% or something in New Hampshire. I forget the latest polls. That's real numbers, right? When Nikki's in the high teens. So Vivek is, what do you think his play is? I think he's a jerk. And I think he's like a poor man's version of Trump and says the craziest things. I don't know if he believes them or not, but it made the atmosphere chaotic. Largely, it was him who made the atmosphere chaotic and so unserious. Like it makes the Republican Party look like a wholly unserious group of humans. And Nikki Haley's trying to be the adult. Chris Christie's trying to be the adult. And it made the cancer on that stage.
Well,
he really is.
You fed into a follow-up about Adult in the Room. I want to play something from you, from your network in a second, but I do want to get back to Vivek. For a guy who's written these books and was a CEO of biotech, and you would think just off those two things alone, writing a book, right? Who has time to write a book? That he's a smart guy, that he understands things. At a core level, he understands things. The fact that he doesn't get some of these small things about how social media companies work and how they're protected right now, right, under the law, right? How he doesn't get some of these basic things like what happens when you leave public service, which I want to get from you because he said something accusing Nikki Haley
I know.
of public service, leaving public service and going into the private sector. I want you've done this. You worked in the government and went to
I wasn't on the Boeing board, but
no, you were not. I wish you were, right? Maybe you would have gotten these
you and me both.
Exactly. So let's play this clip. I want to react on the other side. And I want to preface a question for you. So take a listen to this.
Though to Nikki Haley's comment from earlier that she is somehow not responding to the will of these donors. Nikki, you were bankrupt when you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is, and now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt. And when I said they were bought and paid for, I meant the Republican establishment, not the Democratic establishment. Now you have Reid Hoffman, the person who's effectively George Soros Jr., funding lawsuits across this country against Donald Trump to keep him off the ballot, funding left-wing causes. We discovered this week that he is one of Nikki Haley's largest supporters. Larry Fink, the king of the woke industrial complex, the ESG movement, the CEO of BlackRock, the most powerful company in the world, now supporting Nikki Haley. And to say that doesn't affect her is false, because it's after that meeting later that day that she says that every American needs to be doxxed by having their ID, their government-issued ID, tied to what they say on the internet.
All right, so there's a couple things there. The first thing is I want to tackle the second part. I want you to answer the first part. Second part, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter have all instituted verification services that ask you for your ID so that way they know you're a real human being, and that way we don't have bots. So which one is it, Vivek? Do you want people to be real humans on these social media platforms that are, again, private companies? You're free to start your own. You can contact Amazon Web Services. I'll help you roadmap the product. We can build it together, buddy. But it's a private company. For all my legal beagles that are listening to this, I'm sorry. I've gone through this with legal departments at big companies. Some of the apps that you use right now in the marketplace. So that's the first thing. And she clarified what she said later on in the debate. The first part that he mentioned there about what happened when she left. She wasn't bankrupt when she left as UN ambassador, but she went into the private sector, which a lot of the folks that are in public service, when they leave in the private sector, I said this on TV. One of four things. Marie, you're doing a couple of them. You can teach at a school and be a professor because you're a subject matter expert. You go on TV, you're an analyst because you're paid for some of the subject matter expertise that you have. You write a book, given the clearances and what the subject matter is about. You've got to have to clear that with your old employers. Or you do get into the private sector that's still public service adjacent. And it's working for a company where you still have a clearance. There's 4 million clearance holders out there. You can tell I've done my homework on this, by the way, Marie. And so you can work. Thank you. And you can work for one of these companies that are adjacent. This is kind of the way that DC, Virginia works. Am I far off there? Can you kind of explain for Vivek, who says he's a smart guy, how this works when you leave public office and go into the private sector?
Sure. And look, I loved Nikki Haley's response because she said, we weren't broke when we left the UN. It may look broke to you. Like, it was really, I liked that response. There are, and just to be clear, public service is not, no one goes into public service for the money, right? So when you decide to leave government, or when your side loses and you have to leave government, it is totally, I think, like normal practice to a lot of people try and find things that will pay them more money where they can continue to serve, right? So Boeing is a company, I mean, she mentioned it, they make airplanes for the Air Force, they make a whole number of things, right, that our country benefits from in so many ways. And she talked about being a military spouse and how, that's one of the reasons she wanted to go to Boeing. Did she make a bunch of money? Sure. For a company that I think is a pretty good company and that is doing really good things, including for the United States military, yes. And so, and it's what, like you said, it's what a lot of people do, right? A lot of people serve on boards. They go work for these private companies. Do they make more than they did in government service? Absolutely. Okay. Does that mean that she's corrupt because she did that? That is ludicrous. I mean, the problem with Vivek is he actually had a substantive point that he calls her a neocon. I don't think she's a neocon, but he disagrees with her on foreign policy, right? He thinks she is has a more activist ideas about foreign policy, right? And he was trying to tie that to her work for Boeing. He said she'll send your sons and daughters overseas to die to make money, which is so gross and crass. But right, he said that. But because he's such a jerk and personalizes it, right? Talking about how they were broke and how she made all this money, comparing her to Hillary Clinton. I mean, she did what lots of former ambassadors do. They leave public service, by the way, because their side loses often. They go work for companies who will pay them money because of their expertise and their relationships. There's nothing corrupt about that unless you are a corrupt person and you do corrupt things with it.
Right.
And, he personalized it with her. And the point about he tried to make, when he was talking about Ukraine, you can't even name 3 provinces of Ukraine. Like, stop it. Why are you? And she could, but yeah, he doesn't, for a guy that's made a lot of money in the private sector, he was bizarrely critical of the private sector last night, including in that exchange, right?
Quick break from our pod to tell you about a new pod at Fresh Roasted Coffee, Envy Pods. So if you go to freshroastedcoffee.com, my partner's shaking his head. That's a good transition. Are you kidding me?
It was good. No, I shook my head. I was like, that's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because I saw this picture earlier. I was like, I saw what you're doing.
It is pretty good. That's right. So listen, the new Envy Pods over at freshroastedcoffee.com, the official sponsor of Can We Please Talk, environmentally safe, compostable. You can go check these out at freshroastedcoffee.com. When you open up the package, it smells delicious. I'm telling you, you can't smell it on here, but I promise you that when I opened this morning to make my cup of coffee, it was delicious. Head to freshroastedcoffee.com today. Use the promo code CANWEGET20 for 20% off your first order, or hit the link in our show details. Speaking engagements, because
yes, right.
I mean, listen, this is what happens when baseball players, football players retire and they sign autographs and they go to speaking engagements and they're going to get paid. I mean, they're not going to get paid the same as an athlete, but that's because, like you said, you don't get into public service for the money. And by the way, I had alluded to this somewhere else. There's a Washington Post article from Maeve Reston. I want to get the author's name correct. She had disclosed her speaking fees, corporate board positions in a huge disclosure thing. She earned about 1.2 million to as much as 12 million, delivering about 12 different speeches across the globe from March to January of this past year. So this was according to the FEC. So this was all in like mid-May that this article came down. She had stepped down and she was getting money from these speaking engagements. She had a salary from Great Southern Homes, which is a company based in South Carolina, where she was making reported income of about $100,000 a year just from that. So like you said, this is all public knowledge and it's not illegal unless, like you said, you can prove something. It's almost like the James Comer stuff. Like, unless you can prove something, all you can prove is the guy got money from. Come on, give me a break. Okay.
Right. It's like Vivek likes capitalism, but not that much. Like, it was bizarre that she made too much money. Like, what? I don't understand.
I want to make that too much money like that.
I mean, me too.
Exactly. All right. Let's, speaking of optimism about making money, or the economy is always the biggest issue with voters. 2024 is steamrolling down here. We've only got a few weeks left in 2023. There was a recent poll I saw on 538, and it was from 538 combination with Morning Consult. About 5,800 registered voters in a 43 percentage tie between current President Joe Biden, former President Donald Trump. We just talked about the folks that are vying to knock Trump off. When they don't, When they don't, what do we do about this 2024 matchup between current and former president? There's a challenger right now in Representative Dean Phillips from Minnesota that wants more people to enter on the Democratic side. Let me get the person who once worked for the Obama campaign. Let me get your opinion first on Dean Phillips and entering what is a democratic process, and he's allowed to do this and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But Dean, you're not going to win. You know that. But what do you make of his candidacy? And then outlook for 24. What do you want to see Democrats start doing more of? Because the Republicans right now, they're trying to, I mean, they're all behind Trump, at least a large portion of them. And then maybe there's this coalition that merges after Iowa to try to take on Trump. Maybe. Democratic side, everyone says, I don't know if I trust Biden. You got the Israel-Palestine things now. We've seen a bunch of Jewish voters and Palestinian voters, and the way they said that they won't vote for Joe Biden anymore, at least if you check social media and whatever the algorithm's feeding you. But what do you make of Dean Phillips and then Joe Biden into 2024 and the Democratic message?
So yes, so Dean Phillips. So God bless Dean Phillips, Mike. I mean, he's not going to win, and he's most likely going to hurt Joe Biden if he does anything at all. So look, a bunch of people who the world on the Democratic side wish that Joe Biden wasn't running or that we had a more competitive process, maybe. But you know, we are where we are. And I think that Dean Phillips, what he's doing, if it hurts Joe Biden, is quite irresponsible. I don't know that it will. I think that I'm more worried about people like Robert Kennedy Jr. and, you know, Cornel West and Jill Stein than I am about Dean Phillips. I just think he's embarrassing himself and he should not do it. I get what he's trying to do, but he's not going to succeed, and he has the real potential to hurt the president. So look, polls a year out are not predictive. Certainly. I think a couple things are true. I think that elections are choices. They're not referenda. And so, yes, Joe Biden has low approval ratings. So does Donald Trump. And yes, some people think that Biden's numbers are going to go down because of Israel-Palestine. It is hard for me to believe that a lot of those people are going to vote for Donald Trump. I mean, they might not vote, which is a concern. So I am believe a few things. One, I believe Democrats need to get their butts in gear, and they need to do a better job of messaging what Joe Biden has done, particularly on the economy. I think there's good economic news, and I think we have not done a good job messaging it. I think they haven't done a good job messaging across the board. Now, the campaign hasn't really started yet, right? Let the Republicans duke it out. But I think they need to do this better. I think we need to be worried about this. I also think that every time Donald Trump has been atop the Republican Party since he won in 2016, every other election, midterm, general, Republicans have underperformed. Democrats have overperformed historical trends because Donald Trump is pulling down the party. Every time abortion has been on the ballot, women's health, Democrats are overperforming. So I'm worried because the consequences of a Donald Trump presidency are horrific. I'm worried because the thing people like least about Joe Biden is the one thing he can't change or message around, right? His age. He's also the only one who's ever beaten Trump at a ballot box. So I think that I would rather be Joe Biden than Donald Trump today, electorally speaking. But I think Democrats have a hell of a lot of work to do. And I want to make sure they do it. So sitting here in December 2023, that's how I don't know. That's how I'm looking at it. But how are you looking at it?
Well, I mean, I did want to ask you real quick, though, because I'm looking at it. I'm with you on message to what you've done strength wise. And that's kind of why. And by the way, we've invited Dean Phillips on the program. And I'm going to ask him this if he comes on. Why not just be a surrogate, a pseudo surrogate for the president? If you truly feel you voted with him 100% of the time, which has been shown and he's not refuted, you are not killing him. You just don't think a Biden-Harris ticket would win right now based on November polls, because he said this a couple of weeks ago when he announced, which is asinine to think that you're running solely based on data right now from registered voters and not a year from now when everyone knows voters have short-term memory. I just don't get why he's jumping into the race. So I'm with you. I think more TV, and then the campaign hasn't started yet. More TV, but I'm just curious as to why wouldn't Dean Phillips? Let me ask you why. You're Steve Schmidt's obviously his campaign manager on this. Let's say he's like, you know what? I need Marie Harf. I need Marie Harf on Dean Phillips's campaign. I know you're not taking the call, but like, what would you be telling Dean Phillips if he had asked you about, hey, I want to run and I want you to run this campaign? Because you know that there's an incumbent right now. You know, that's why Gavin Newsom is not doing anything. Like, what would you say to him about not doing this and actually going out there and being a pseudo surrogate for the president and messaging about some of these things?
I mean, and look, Newsom's being very smart, by the way, debating Ron DeSantis on Fox. Like, Newsom is playing this very well. Look, if I would say to someone like Dean Phillips, if they had come to me and asked if they should run, is look, I don't disagree that we have reason to be concerned, but data doesn't lie, right? And there is no path for a Democrat other than Joe Biden to be the nominee, short of him no longer being with us. God forbid, right? I think there is no path. And so if you take that as a given, all you are doing is potentially hurting Joe Biden and your own career, right? I mean, Dean Phillips, by all accounts, is like a good member of Congress. I didn't know him very well. I didn't know him personally at all. But if you're not going to win, this is not the time for sort of moral victories and making statements of principle. This is the time to make sure Donald Trump is not president again. So if there's no path, then get out of the way and help. Be a surrogate. To your point, be a surrogate. Get out there. Get out there on the campaign trail. Try and help him get reelected. I get what he's trying to do, but reality is reality. And elections are choices, and this one looks like it's going to be a choice between two candidates that a lot of Americans aren't enthusiastic about, and campaigns' job is to make them enthusiastic enough to go vote. That's it, especially in the states that matter.
That's it. I can't put anything else on it. I'm not going to. We're going to leave it all there. Marie, thank you so much for hopping on the program with us, and always continued success. You know, you're always welcome back in 2024. We're going to talk more all about this. So thanks for hopping on with us, Marie.
I loved it. I love the program. I love everything you're doing. It was great to wrap up the year with you. It's been a weird year. There's a lot that's happened, and we all need to get some rest before 2024. We got a lot to come.
That is very well said. And by the way, if you want to watch the video portions of any of the interviews we've done on our show, head over to our YouTube channel, type in Can We Please Talk Podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, thank you. Hit the subscribe button for me. Audio podcast platforms, you know by now, Apple, Spotify, Google. Shout out to everybody who listens to us on Good Pods. Shout out to Acast, our hosting platform. We can't do it without them. I say this all the time. I truly mean it. We can't do it without each and every one of you that listens to this program. As always, I'm Mike Leon. Nick, safe flight home, buddy. We'll see you when you get back, and we'll see everybody next time. Hey, thanks for watching the Can We Please Talk podcast. Whatever clip you just watched, we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you stick around for some more. Subscribe to the channel. My partner's over here smashing the button. Come on, do him a favor. So hit subscribe.